Welcome to Distorted Opinions. I'm Kayla, and today I am joined by Quicia. Quicia, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
We're going to talk about something that we've kind of touched on a little bit, but I have felt for a while now that we could probably spend a whole episode on it. And given that this episode is dropping as the Olympics had started, we kind of felt this was a good time to do this topic. We're going to be talking about music and figure skating. And I think figure skating is... Music is important in sports in general. I mean, I think we can all agree, you go to any stadium or arena for a hockey game, baseball game, football game, there's music there and music plays a big part. But I think there are very few sports where the sport is dependent on music, and figure skating is one of those sports where it really is dependent on the music. And so we're gonna take a deeper dive into this, but I wanted to start a little bit and just talking about some of the evolution I've noticed in the music that gets used. Like a few weeks back, I was watching the 1984 men's figure skating at the Olympics, which was Scott Hamilton won the gold that year, and it was kind of interesting. So there were a few things about it that were interesting. I won't go too into the first thing because that goes into a very different show than what our show is focused on. But the first thing is that figure skating in the Olympics, one of the events was actually drawing figures on the ice, which is no longer a thing in figure skating, but that's where the name came from. And I thought that was interesting because I was not around when the 84 Olympics were on, and so I didn't see that, and by the time I really got into skating, that wasn't really a part of the Olympics. But the other thing is that the music at that time seemed like it was very nondescript disco style music that if you looked up that music, you probably couldn't find what that music is online because it's not, I don't think it was popular music. You might have had a few skaters that did classical pieces, but for the most part, a lot of the music that was used that year was this disco-y muzak kind of stuff that it wasn't like actual songs that people could recognize and associate with anything. Whereas now, it's really evolved quite a bit to the point that a lot of the music you hear is well-known music, whether it's music from movie soundtracks, music from video games, music. There is still a lot of classical music, particularly with the more Western areas like Russia. There tend to be a lot of skaters that still use classical. Swan Lake is very popular.
Of course. Of course.
But even going a step further, while a lot of the music that's used is well known, a lot of it also tends to be either remixes or covers of well-known songs. To the remix to the point that like you can recognize the song, but if you were to pull out SoundHound or whatever app you use to try and figure out what the song is or who does the song, it may not be able to actually find that song because it doesn't actually exist. And kind of a good example of how remix, and like there are remixes like more techno-y style or just like different. It makes it like they take the lyrics and they put it to a more classical style track or something like that. But then there's also remixes like the Canadian performance for ice dancing at the 2018 Olympics. Virtue Moyer did they did Roxanne, and one of my, to this day, one of my favorites. I feel like that is the new,
that's the standard.
I also feel like it's the new bolero. So in the 80s, you had Torval and Dean from Great Britain.
Yep. They
did performance to bolero, and back then the scoring system was different as well. So they judged on a 6.0 scoring system. So it was, if you got all 6.0s, that was considered a perfect score back then, and they had gotten all 6.0s across the board on that performance. And so for a long time, it was considered sacrilege if you used bolero in your music, especially if you were an ice dancing pair. And I was watching, I think it was the 2002 Olympics, they were replaying on the Olympic Channel last year. And I don't remember what team it was now, but there was a pair that used bolero, and the commentators were like, it's a risk using this piece given the the Torval and Dean association with it. And at that time, they were still using the 6.0 scoring system. So, you could kind of say like, yeah, that is risky. Now the judging system is even changed. And I could go into a whole lot about why that is and how it works now. And I'm not going to do that because, again, that goes into a different show.
Yeah,
but
there's some spicy stuff that happened.
Definitely.
For it to change their ways, for sure.
Let's just say,
make it
if
a
you
little
want to
bit more
know,
fair.
right. And if you want to know more about that, I highly recommend that you check out, there's a documentary if you get Peacock, which is, it's Comcast's, NBC's, Comcast's, NBC, I think owns
NBC,
it.
yeah.
Comcast, NBC. It's their online streaming platform, and there's a 4-part documentary on there called Meddling, which was produced by Tara Lipinski and her husband, and it talks about the 2002 Pairs event and what happened with that and what happened. So the 4th part hasn't dropped as of recording this episode, but the first 3 have, and I've watched those, and it goes a bit into even before that, some of the things that happened with some of the judges and some of the scandal that took place and why it is that they now use a different scoring system. So if you want to know more about that and why that is, I highly recommend looking at that. But all of that to say that I feel like the Moulin Rouge music would, to me, be considered the modern day Torval and Dean Bolero, where I feel like it's, especially Ice Dancing, it is a tough piece to use because you really, like, that's a tough act to follow. That team got basically the equivalent of a perfect score in the 2018 Olympics with that piece, and there are skaters using it this year, and whenever I hear it, I'm like, it just, I watch it and I can't unsee the 2018 performance with that, and nothing tops it in my opinion. So I think it's really just hard to use that music, and if you're a fan of figure skating, to be seen as somebody who can perform at a level high enough to really compete with that particular piece. But one of the things about that is they had a mix done that was a combination of El Tango de Roxanne and Come What May. And so there are a lot of skaters that use this piece, and there were even a lot of skaters that use that piece in 2018 across the different disciplines of skating. And interestingly enough, they all use different pieces of that music or different combinations of that music. So not everybody necessarily use the same part, but it's interesting because it's like there are a lot of skaters that use bolero, or I don't know, not so much these days, although there is somebody, I think there's a Russian skater that's a female skater that's using bolero this year, and I don't remember which one, but it's a different version. It's like a remixed version or something. So anyway, it's interesting to see the evolution to now there's a lot more popular music that's well known from movie soundtracks and video games and those sorts of things, are popular music that you might hear on the radio. But then there's also, so one of the things I thought was really cool was the U.S. Nationals were a few weeks ago, and they did a segment with Nathan Chen, who's one of the, I mean, he's quite possibly going to be the gold medalists at Beijing, because I don't think anybody can compete with him in the men's field.
Unreal.
Yeah, he's insane. But they did an interview segment with him where he talked about, and I didn't know this about him, he plays piano. And so throughout the whole segment, he's playing the piano. He's playing a song. I'm not sure what the song was, but he's playing piano. And then they've got footage of him skating around set to this music. And he's talking about the music, and he's talking about the importance of music to figure skaters and the type of connection that they have to music. And I think it's maybe not necessarily something that a lot of people would think about, but there's a lot that I think goes into choosing the music for a program, because you also have to figure that that performer or those performers, depending on the discipline, have to hear that music like every day, multiple times a day, for a year, if not longer, because I think typically they'll do a program for a year and then they'll do a new program. So you have to really like the music that you're listening to when you choose it, because not only do you have to listen to it a lot, but I think there has to be a certain connection with it in order to give a performance that people are viewers and judges are also going to connect to. If you're just kind of like wishy-washy about it, you know, it's probably going to come across that way when you perform to it as well. So I thought that it was kind of interesting that they did that segment and they talked to him, and he talked about the importance of music and the connection that skaters have to music in general, but also when it comes to choosing the pieces for their programs. And you also have Eric Radford, who's one of the pair skaters in Canada. Mm-hmm. He plays piano as well. And he actually composed a piece for Patrick Chan, who was a men's Canadian skater. Mm-hmm. It was his 2016-2017 free skate program. That was a piano piece that was composed and recorded by Eric Radford. So I think it's cool to also see the kind of crossover. Another Star Andrews is another one that I've seen her skate in a couple performances this year. She did Etta James at last, but wow, it was her, like, she did the recording of it, she sang the vocals on it, and it was phenomenal. I mean, talk about taking it over the top. It's wow. You know, you're performing it, but now you're performing the music that you're using for that particular mm-hmm. program. I mean,
what a cool advantage that gives you.
Yeah.
To be able to have a foundation in a connection to the music, not just because you've heard it over and over again, but because you're actually like performing it.
Right.
For ice skating, figure skating, what's cool about it for me, of my perspective, is like, it's the ultimate like choreography. Mm-hmm. It's like you're in motion, right? There's so much athleticism involved in skating that I don't think people give enough credit to. Mm-hmm. They are some of these athletes push their body to the limit in terms of physics. It's insane. Yeah. And to couple that with an appreciation for the music, but to be able to nail some of this choreography requires such a discipline. And I think that there's a really cool advantage if you are someone that is a musician or has some type of musicality to you. Mm-hmm. You're able to tighten up your choreography that much more because you're already thinking in like rhythm and have a connection to that song that only you would understand, that we get to experience because it's how you're communicating your love and appreciation for the song. So I think that's why we have like a joint appreciation for ice skating. It's because of the level of commitment, but the sheer artistry that we get to experience, because it's like all things that you can be doing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, in this beautiful motion.
Definitely. I mean, just to kind of second what you said about the athleticism that goes into it, I agree 100%. I'm by no means an expert. I used to skate a lot as a kid, just on the pond in the backyard, and I haven't really ice skated in probably about 20 years at least. They had open rink time in college, and my senior year I went a couple of times with some friends, but again, I don't really consider that to be ice skating. Well, it's skating, but it's a different, like, it's very basic. And so my grandmother, we used to skate all the time on the pond up at her house, and she had mentioned that it was probably going to be frozen when we went up a couple of weeks ago at this point, and I was like, "Ooh, okay." So brought my skates, actually bought a new pair of skates. I brought my skates and then I bought a new pair because, oh, thank you. They are a world of difference on compared to the old ones, which were apparently 2 sizes too big, because I think when I got those, I was going by my shoe size, which is not the way that you're supposed to choose your skate size. Your skate size is actually probably smaller than your actual shoe size. As it turns out, that was definitely the case. I had been looking on Amazon and I found some, but I'm like, I really don't know that I feel comfortable ordering a pair online if I don't really know what size I need. I'd like to really be able to try them on. So we went to, I don't know if I should say the name of the store. I'll just say there was a sporting goods store up near my grandmother, and I went in there, and they happened to have one pair left in women's that was what I thought might be my size. And so I decided to try them on and talk to the helpful employees there who gave me some advice as to how it should fit and how it would break in eventually when you start to use them more. And I eventually decided, okay, this is the size I need, and was very surprised when I realized that it was actually 2 full sizes down from the skates that I had been using for starters. And then second of all, the boot is more solid, so it gives you more ankle support. It's almost like not quite the same, but similar to having like a rollerblade boot, where it's not is the lower end, less expensive figure skates typically are, I think, leather, or they're just like, they're a thin material and there's no real ankle support on them. And at my age, ankle support is helpful. And
it is.
Yeah, so I ended up, I bought these skates and I was skating on the pond, and yeah, let's just say that, so my mom also ventured out, and I think she thought she was going to be like Nancy Kerrigan as soon as she hit the ice. And I was like, this is going to be harder than you think it's going to be. Take it from somebody who has not done rollerblading or skating in a long time and has recently decided to start doing it again and thought that it was going to be easy. It is not easy. You're going to get out there and you're going to have a hard time. And she was like, no, it's fine. I've done it before. And I'm like, but you haven't done it in like 30 years. There's a difference. So sure enough, she put on her skates, and I sent Quicia some videos of this. And she was mad because it wasn't easy, and she was mad that she couldn't do it. And I'm like, I told you it wasn't going to be that easy. You haven't done it. And so the part where I'm going with this long story is to your point about the athleticism. So if you watch any of these skaters fall in a performance, they get right back up and they get right back into the performance.
Insane.
Regardless of how much time has passed in the music. They got to be at a certain point at a certain time in the music, and they get there. Me, I fell down for the first time. I was at the rink, and I don't even really know what happened. I don't know if I hit my toe pick and I tripped over it, or there was some debris on the ice at one point that I'd been kind of keeping my eye on when I went around that area, but I kind of forgot on this particular lap. And I just I went down in a weird way that I can't really describe, but it was like on my knees, and kind of like my feet were kind of behind me in like a W shape, I guess. And I had to like get onto my knees, crawl over to the wall, which wasn't too far away, and pull myself up. And I'm thinking, like, boy, do they make it look easy when a lot of these skaters fall and they just get back up and get into it like nothing. And some of these falls, they're coming from a higher height than me just falling from standing up.
Think about like the momentum that they already have, and especially if they're coming off of any type of
a jump,
double, triple, whatever, up to 4, I believe they can do.
Quad.
Yeah, a quad. They're landing with more force than when they started, clearly. So I think I read somewhere that it's like, it can be up to like 3 or 4 times their body weight when they're landing. Just because of how much force they need to gather to bring themselves up to complete whatever they're going to do. And then the land with that much force, and you're on ice, like my bones are already like seizing up, just like watching them. So to know that like, they know that can be their fate every time they attempt any of these pieces. And yet and still, like you said, they get up and as if nothing's happened. Meanwhile, us normal individuals, like we're down for the count. I'm sure they have they have adrenaline. They're athletes. This is something that is not unheard of for them, but to know that force like can just like shatter bones is absolutely like painstaking to watch, but why we watch the sport, it's like, oh my goodness. Again, there are people that like extend to what the body can actually do in terms of getting themselves into the air, spinning 4 times in the air, landing with grace, and then still being able to like have some like gravitas to their performance. It's really outstanding. It's really, really, really outstanding.
Yeah. I mean,
so all you haters out there, disclosure, who don't watch figure skating, I'm sorry. You need to work through whatever it is you need to work through in your mind to start seeing the athleticism and the wonder of these performers, because they are some of the greatest machines the world will see.
Yeah. I've seen some very nasty falls in the last year of watching the various competitions on TV. Actually, one that came to mind that was happened during nationals, actually. I'm going to probably butcher this poor man's name, but Yaroslav Panyot, who I think is originally from Russia, but he's skating for the U.S. His father, I believe, was a figure skater in Russia, and then they migrated here, and now he skates for the U.S. He was doing Saturday Night Fever in an Elvis Presley medley, and his Saturday Night Fever program was a short program, and that was really good. The second night, he went to do his Elvis program, and he's apparently been recovering from, I believe, a foot injury, which I feel like if you've got a foot injury and you're in skating like that, I feel like is probably one of the worst. Actually, I think it was Ice Dancing 2002. They showed a pair. I want to say they were from Russia, but I could be mistaken. But they showed a pair that the only reason they showed them because they were so low ranking that they wouldn't have been anywhere near the top 10, so they normally wouldn't show them. The only reason they showed them is because she had broken her foot in like some warm-up or a class or something that she had been doing earlier in the week, and refused to have it put in a cast because she wouldn't have been able to skate, and she was not going to not skate in the Olympics. So she skated on a broken foot for 2 programs and no painkillers because she didn't want to not be able to feel what was going on. And I cannot even imagine.
That person's dangerous.
Yes. Very high pain tolerance, apparently. I mean, you could tell by the end of it, she was done. Like, she had done what she needed to do, and she could not do anymore. And I can't even imagine. But this guy, Yaroslav, he was dealing with a recovery from a foot injury, and he had a problem during his long program with the Elvis Presley medley, where he landed weird, and I think his skate tie had an issue, like his laces had an issue or something. They gave him a few minutes to fix it. He came back, and you could tell he was still having trouble with his foot, and he ended up actually withdrawing, which was really sad to see.
Sad, but probably the smartest thing.
Right. I mean, he wasn't a contender for the Olympic team by any means, but still, you hate to see something like that happen ever. But
also, great music choice.
I always find it interesting when they pick something that's a little more, I don't know if edgy is the right word, but like rock style stuff is not
definitely not what has been done traditionally. Right. Not even in modern times where there's a lot more well-known music, rock music, I feel like, is still not something you hear a lot. I would agree with that. Yeah. There was a pair, an ice dancing pair, were they from, I think, I think they might have been from Great Britain in 2014 or 2018, that they skated to Lincoln Park, which I feel like that was kind of a bold choice, especially maybe it was 2010, because I feel like 2010, that really would have been pushing the envelope to choose something like that. When was you may know this, when was it allowed? Because at first, wasn't it, you couldn't even use a song that had lyrics, and then you could use lyrics, and I think that's when a lot of this shifted. Yeah, I forgot what year that happened.
I don't know if it happened the same year for everybody, but I had seen something when I was preparing for this show about pairs. It was 2010, I believe, when they allowed them to start using music with lyrics. But I don't know if that's the case for all of the other disciplines as well, or if they were different. I'll see if I can find something on that. Let's see. When were lyrics allowed in figure skating, maybe? I don't even know what to search for to find that, so this should be interesting. 2012, maybe? What is this? Wow. The vulture.com has an article, 11 things you should know about Olympic figure skating music. I probably should have read this before we got started. I have to read the first sentence of this article because it's kind of funny.
Thanks,
After
Vulture.
way too many routines set to Bizet's Carmen and Tchaikovsky's Swan Lake, the music rules in figure skating competitions changed to allow music with lyrics after the Sochi Winter Olympics in 2014. So apparently it was 2014.
Wow. Okay. Carmen, it's so true because there was not going to be a time that you didn't see a routine to Carmen. It was bound to happen.
Yeah. Swan Lake and Carmen. Swan Lake is still used quite a bit. In fact, it's gotten to the point where I see the costumes when they're coming out and I haven't even heard the music yet. And I'm like, $5 says they're going to be doing Swan Lake. And sure enough,
there's any type of tuxedo-ish thing going on, white, black, we know. Right.
Although I did have to chuckle. So that U.S. Nationals, the figure skating gala that they had after the actual nationals competition, Jean-Luc Baker and Caitlin Wyack from the U.S., they did Swan Lake, but it was a really funny rendition. I highly recommend seeing if the video's on YouTube because they came out and it's she comes out in this almost like a ballerina type white costume, and he comes out in an all black costume, and he kind of he hovers by the boards. He's crouched by the boards, and he's covered in a blanket. It's what the heck? What is going on here? So the music starts, Swan Lake, and he comes out from under the blanket, and he is the Black Swan. And he's got this tank top with this feathery boa, and there's all these props, and they're wearing this swan hat throughout the thing. And it was comedic and well done. I got a good chuckle out of it. I highly recommend giving it a watch. Most of the times when you see Swan Lake being performed, it is usually a very serious performance. So to see that kind of a take on it was kind of funny. That's actually kind of one of the things I really like about the gala performances is you get to see things that you don't necessarily get to see during competition because either the rules don't allow, or it's just not something that would fit into a competition. And one of the really cool things about the U.S. Nationals Gala, which we were talking about very briefly, and then I was like, oh, we should probably get started because this is going to get into discussion. And then I sent Quicia a partial list of music that's being used this year amongst the different performers, and she was getting very excited about some stuff, and I was like, we better just get into this. But anyway, one of the things that was really cool about the U.S. Nationals Gala was that they had, because they were in Nashville, they had live music for some of the performances, which I can only recall a few other occasions where there have been figure skating performances where they've used live bands. And one of them was another one that took place in Nashville, and that was Scott Hamilton has a foundation called Scott Hamilton Cares, and it's it raises money for cancer research. And for those who are not aware, talk about a really inspirational person. Yeah. Scott Hamilton. So I didn't know this about him until I was watching the 84 Olympics on YouTube, and they had done an interview and they talked about him. So he had been diagnosed with, I forget what the disease was when he was younger, but they basically gave him 6 months to live. And it turned out they misdiagnosed him. And he had another condition that caused him to stop growing. So I don't know. I want to say he's 5'4" or 5'3", which is shorter compared to most men. But he's also been diagnosed with cancer, I think 3 times. And he has battled through it every time. I think he was first diagnosed in 1997. And so I find him to be a really inspirational person because he's still alive today. He's still skating today. He's still raising money for his foundation that provides money for cancer research. They had talked to him. I'd watched another video from one of his events, and they had interviewed him, and he had talked about how part of what got him through those diagnoses was skating. Yeah. And he said, I'm going to go out, I'm going to keep skating. And this is something that keeps him going every day. And so I don't know. I love Scott Hamilton anyway. I've been, as a longtime fan of figure skating, I've been a fan of him for a long time. And I think I saw him many years ago now. My grandparents took me to Stars on Ice, and I believe he was skating at Stars on Ice when we went. And unfortunately, I don't remember much of it because I was very young at the time. But I've always just found him to be really inspirational. And the more I've kind of found out about him over the last, few months as I've been watching more of these videos and watching some of these older videos, the more impressive I just find his attitude about things. And so anyway, I know his charity does a performance. I don't know if it's yearly, but they've done a few of them. And I also don't know if it's always in Tennessee, but I know they did one in Tennessee at least, and in Nashville, and they had live music throughout that as well. In fact, Sheryl Crow was one of the musicians that they had performing during that. And it's unusual to see live bands perform with skaters. And Johnny Weir, who's also he's an Olympian and former figure skater. Now he and Tara Lipinski, also an Olympian and former figure skater. They do a lot of the commentary for, regardless of whether it's U.S. or international events. They tend to be the ones that do the commentary. And I'm a little bit bummed actually because Scott Hamilton used to be one of the commentators, and they kind of pushed him out for Johnny Weir because they felt he was getting too old for the younger crowd to be doing commentating, which I think is really unfortunate because I always appreciated his commentary. I felt like he always gave a very unbiased opinion on things, and not to say that Johnny Weir doesn't give an unbiased opinion, but anyway, I like Scott Hamilton as a commentator. Johnny brings a different flavor to the commentating for sure. A very different flavor, but one of the things he said during this Nationals gala was that it is a rare and magical experience for skaters to get to be able to skate to live music, because typically the music is pre-recorded, even in an event, a gala event where there isn't usually live music. So it's just any time in a gala event, you typically have pre-recorded music. So some of the skaters had the band, some of them didn't, and I'm going to apologize. I have a runny nose for some reason. I don't know if I'm having like an allergy thing or something. It's
okay. But for those who don't know, we've just in the cold. We've been in cold. It's been cold, bitter cold, ridiculous cold. We can't shake the sniffles. All right. Yes. It's just here.
Yes. Yes. So, but yeah, so it was really cool to see live music. They even had, and I couldn't find him on Spotify, and there have been a few things that I wish I had taken notes on the music that I heard some of these skaters and who it was that skated, because this list I found is not a complete list, and there are songs that I know were used, and I know there were skaters that used them, and I can't find them on this list that I sent Quicia. So
this list is still fire.
There's a lot of stuff on that.
Oh my goodness, there's things that I'm like nerding out about.
Quicia was getting so excited. I was like, we better start this, because if she's gonna start talking about something, we better have this recording.
Yeah, because there's so many cool pieces of music in here, which get me excited. First of all, Footloose Jacob Sanchez is going to be doing Footloose. I mean, that's just going to be fun. That's just something that's going to be exciting. Everybody relates to. But then right under that, that's when I like went full throttle, like crazy excited, was Avatar: The Last Airbender theme. And I said it before a while ago on the show. One of my favorite TV series of all time is Avatar: The Last Airbender. And a main part of it, not just the story, is because of its music. A lot of original pieces took inspiration of using traditional Asian instruments and sounds, and it's just so good. Like it's so good. They're doing the main theme. There's so many other things they could have done, but that's something that stuck out to me. As of course, I was like, oh my goodness, this would be a beautiful piece to do. Can't wait to see what happens. And then of course, another animated series or another anime movie, Princess Mononoke, a Studio Gilby production. Again, fantastic music, always well done. That's going to be fire. There's a lot on here.
There is a lot. I also see that there's a Russian skater skating to The Matrix.
The Matrix. Yes.
Some of these skaters I don't think I've actually seen. And part of that is when you watch the broadcasts on cable TV, typically they only show the top certain number of skaters. And actually, so I have a lot of skating still on the DVR. I was telling Quicia that I've only watched, I think, one of the competitions from the European Championships, and this weekend is 4 continents, so I'm gonna have more stuff being added to the DVR, and all of these things are like 2 hours a piece, so it's like I don't have enough time in a day, and I went away for a weekend, and now I come back and I'm backlogged. But the men's championships for the European Championships, they only showed, I think, maybe 10 of the skaters, but then when they show the scores at the end for all of the skaters, they had like 30 skaters or something like that.
It's wild.
That competed, but they didn't show most of those. Whereas what I found is if it's available on Peacock, typically they've got like a completely unedited version of whatever the competition is, so you actually can see some of the skaters that don't get shown on the major network broadcast, which is kind of interesting. They also sometimes include some of the competitions that don't, like, the thing that really I don't understand is on cable you can find the US Nationals for obvious reasons if you're in the US. You can find the European Nationals. You can find 4 continents. They had there was another championship that was in Italy recently. The Russian Cup was shown. But at no point do I recall ever seeing the Canadian competitions. And I don't know if that is some sort of a contractual thing with the CBC or what the reasoning is for that, but I find it kind of annoying because I'd like to be able to watch those as well. And I can't, I haven't looked on Peacock yet. Maybe they're up there and I just haven't seen them, but they are not available on cable for some reason. Where was I going with that? Oh yeah, that there are more skaters that you don't always see. So this list that I found is like, there's a lot of skaters on here that I don't recognize, and I suspect it's because they don't show them when they skate during the major network broadcasts. But there's also some that aren't on here that I know for sure perform, and I don't know why they're not on here. This is, I guess, not a comprehensive list, but one that came up, and I don't know if I've seen him or not, is Matteo Rizzo from Italy, and his short program is Hurt. And I don't know if that's the Johnny Cash or the 9 Inch Nails version of Hurt, or if that's some different Hurt entirely.
We want to find out. That's what's really exciting.
I'm curious about that, because that would be a really interesting program, in my opinion. There's a couple of skaters skating to the Nutcracker. There's a skater from Estonia.
Showman. Oh, the Greatest Showman. Like what, like, are they doing The Greatest Showman, like the theme, or are they doing like another song from The Greatest Showman?
Do you know?
Oh, this was, let me go back up. Alexei Yurkov, Russia.
Oh, yeah,
He's also
yeah.
doing Fallen. And I was like, Fallen, like Alicia Keys is Fallen? Or
Probably. I'm trying to remember if I've seen him. The thing is with Russia, and this goes for the men too, but particularly the women, the women's skating in Russia is highly, highly competitive to the point that a lot of, I won't say a lot because I don't know for sure how many, but there are a number of skaters who move to other countries to represent other countries because they have a better opportunity of being able to potentially go to the Olympics in another country other than Russia, even if they're from Russia.
Right.
Because the bar is so high. I mean, even if you compare the women to the men, I feel like the women blow the men out of the water for the most part in the level of competitiveness. I mean, very rarely do I remember seeing a woman fall during a performance this year, but the men, it seems like there's a lot of falls with the men, and I just feel like the bar. And so here is something that I'm going to mention, and this is not music related, but I'm just going to mention it because I find this really interesting. Apparently in the short program, the men are allowed to do quads, but the women are not.
Why?
Rules. Don't allow the women to do quads in a short program.
What?
But they can do them in a long program.
I wonder why that is.
Don't know. I know that was something that Johnny Weir commented on, and he was like, that's something that I think the ISU needs to change because that's an antiquated rule. Like, why are the women not allowed? I sometimes find Johnny to be a little bit annoying as a commentator, but there are a lot of things he says that I do often agree with him on, or there's things that you don't know that it's like, oh, that's interesting, that he'll bring up and express an opinion on it. And that was one of them, was that the women are not allowed to do quads in the short program. So fun fact, just to throw that out there.
Interesting.
But yeah, so I don't know, there's a lot of Russian men too, and I don't know if I've seen him, but I'm sure if you look online you could probably find his performance and find out. I would be willing to bet you that it's probably, if it's not the Alicia Keys version, it is probably some version of it, like a cover or something. I can go look when we're done here because I'm curious now as well.
Right. I just took a look into women's and I see Game of Thrones, USA. Mia Callan's doing Game of Thrones theme for the free program, and that's probably going to be awesome.
I don't know if I've seen her either. I don't think I've seen her. There is, who did I just see? So I don't think I've seen Wakaba Higuchi from Japan, but she's doing Your Song for the short program and the Lion King soundtrack for the free program.
I got chills already.
I can tell you right now, so there's a pairs team from Russia that's doing Black Swan. And they're doing Sing 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 as the short program, which is kind of interesting because Sing Sing Sing, I'm pretty sure, unless it's a different version, is not Glenn Miller. Who does that song? It's jazz. It's like a swing song.
Right.
Benny Goodman.
Yeah, there it is.
And if you don't know the song, you probably heard it because well, depending on how old you are, I'm pretty sure there was a Chips Ahoy commercial that used Sing 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 back in the day. Don't know why I remember that, but I do. So given your age, you may be familiar with the song. Even if you're not old enough to remember that commercial, you've probably heard it before because it's a pretty widely used song for a lot of different things. The White Crow, isn't that a movie soundtrack as well?
I think so.
I don't know if it is. I feel like I've heard of that, but Ashley Kane Gribble and Timothy Leduc are doing that as their short program.
Brooke McIntosh and Benjamin Mamar from Canada are doing Billie Jean. Stop it.
There's a lot of Michael Jackson that gets used. That's actually so... Again, I'm going to go back to 2018 for a moment. The Canadian ice dancing team, Virtue Moyer, their short program was a combination of... Why am I blanking? the Rolling Stones, and they did like because I think the theme was Latin dance, because I think they're given a theme of some sort that they have to use. I don't know for sure. Don't hold me to that because I don't know for sure, but I feel like that was something I'd heard. But so they had like a Latin flavored version of the Rolling Stones and a Latin flavored version of the Eagles' Hotel California and Santana song thrown in there as their short program. And then the year prior, which was not an Olympic year, they did Prince. So they had a whole medley of Prince music, which was very cool. And there are a few people that do Prince. What did I see? Somebody did The Question of You in the men's European program, which is very cool. Again,
That's
one
awesome.
of those,
That's
like, there's a
awesome.
little bit of rock in there, but it's not totally on that side of the spectrum, which I always think is kind of cool. But yeah, there have been a number of teams that are doing Michael Jackson. There's there's the Lila Fear and Lewis Gibson from Great Britain. They're one of the ice dancing teams, is doing Kiss as their short program. Which is, again, it's fun if you haven't seen it to look at the costumes and see if you can guess what the music is going to be based off the costumes. And a lot of times, not many people doing Kiss, so I don't know if it was as obvious, but I saw the costumes and I'm like, these look kind of like they'd be tied into Kiss somehow. And sure enough, they were. And then there was anybody who typically does Michael Jackson, you can kind of tell that it's going to be Michael Jackson. The U.S. ice dance team, Madison Hubble and Greg Donahue, they're doing Janet Jackson as their short program. Excuse me. So it's yeah.
How fitting after the Super Bowl to do a Janet Jackson number. How fitting.
Yeah, definitely. Coldplay is another one that gets used a lot.
Yeah, but I could definitely see that. For sure.
Excuse me.
Pulp Fiction. Like how? Like,
where's that?
Pulp Fiction is under a rhythm dance.
Here, I'll just. Probably the easiest way is for me to do a command search here on the list.
I was like, Pulp Fiction.
Oh, yeah, Russia. Yeah, see, I don't know if I've seen them either. Because I don't know if they ever actually show them. Suicide Squad, there's a pair from Hungary doing music from Suicide Squad.
Wow.
And Justice League as their free dance.
Yeah, they're like Star Wars, like Canada's doing like a whole Will Smith thing with Men in Black and getting jiggy with it.
Yeah.
Some of these are so fun, and it's just it's going to be exciting. Or they can go in a completely different direction and have us all like flabbergasted and amazed by how they decide to remix us to fit their choreography.
Right. Yeah. I know there's people missing from this list because in the pair skating, the Chinese pair, and I am blanking on their name right now. Let me see if I can find them. Oh yeah, Sui Wenjing and what's her partner's name? Zhao Hongbo, I believe, is her partner. They're doing Bridge Over Troubled Water, but they're doing a John Legend cover of it. Oh. Which is really interesting. And they're I think they're slated to probably be the gold medalists for the pair skating. In fact, they're probably the strongest team in any of China's skating events right now. So they're actually they're putting pair skating last as an event, which typically they don't do because they're, I think, banking that they're probably going to take the gold, but they were I think a 1/10 of a point from getting gold in 2018. So it's been kind of a big deal for them trying to get into this year's Olympics and trying to hopefully get a second chance at getting the gold. But Bridge Over Troubled Water and what is their short program? I want to say is like James Bond or something, but I can't think of it. Let me see if I can find it, because they're not on that list, and I don't understand who came up with this list, but it's missing a lot of well-known skaters.
This is true.
2022 program. Let's see. Of course, nothing is going to come up quickly that has what their music is.
Or at least they say this was what was announced at the time of this being posted.
Yeah, I didn't look at the date on there, so it could be that was
last
posted
July.
a while ago. Oh, really?
Yeah, so that's most likely why some of this isn't filled out. This list isn't completely filled out, but I think just at the time it's what they had.
Yeah, of course I can't find anything that says what their program is for this year, and I can't remember what their short program is. I feel like it was something from James Bond, but
probably.
I don't know. I don't want to misspeak on that, and I don't remember what it is, but I do know that their long program is Bridge Over Troubled Water, and there's two versions of it, actually. There's the John Legend version, which I think is the second half of it, and I think the first half is... There's a female cover of it. I want to say Katie Lang, but I don't think that's it.
It's the same, because who used this a long time ago? It's such a beautiful, first of all, it's a beautiful song. It gets me every time. Because they, going back to TV shows, Scandal used it as one of their season openers.
Okay.
And Kashonda Rhimes knows how to pull at our heartstrings at the right moment. Like she did it. Spoiler alert, when one of the characters passes and they're opening up with like a funeral for that character and they play that song, I was like, oh, she got me. She got me. It's so good. It's so good.
I did find their 2017 apparently they did this performance in 2017. Ooh. And they've brought it back for this season in their Olympic performance.
You know how confident you have to be to, you know what, we're just going to unearth this because it's great.
So the beginning is John Legend. I guess the whole thing is John Legend. I don't know why I thought they had a different version of it in the beginning, because that's something else you'll sometimes see is they'll start with one version of a song and then they'll transition into another version of it at some point in the middle of the song. There's an ice dance team, I believe, doing Chris Isaac, and they do the Chris Isaac version of it in the first half, and then the second half it transitions into this techno kind of remix of it, which is interesting. And there's, I think, varying opinions on whether or not people like that kind of a drastic transition in a song where you go from, like, if you've heard Chris Isaac's version of Wicked Game, very well-known song. Yeah. It's a lot of acoustic. There's a little bit of electric guitar in there is like the main lead. And so to go from that to something that it's Yolo Rakoba does the kind of techno remix version that they use, and it's very, very different from the original. So I feel like it can be a little bit jarring if 1 minute you're listening to the Chris Isaac version and the next minute it's like, and then it switches into this totally different version, and it becomes a lot more kind of poppy and dancey than the first half. Because, I mean, that's another thing, too, that kind of plays into it is the dance aspect of it. I feel like you very much have to be a good dancer, and you have to be a graceful person to be able to do figure skating in any of the different disciplines of it, because if you aren't, I think it's just awkward and doesn't work well. And especially in today's world, the type of skating that happens, and the type of elements that are expected, you have to be a fairly decent dancer off the ice, I think, as well, in order to kind of...
Yes, you have to know how to do your 1-2 step. Absolutely. This is not like, because we would imagine that they're, of course, practicing choreography. You mentioned Moulin Rouge, and of course they're working with a choreographer first, and then translating that to the ice. They're using their skills and their talents to translate that choreography onto the ice. If the choreographer is not a skater, that's where the meeting of the minds happens.
Right.
Because any choreographer worth their weight is going to understand how, rather than moving, it's like, well, there will be no steps because you're in motion. So this is how we'll estimate however many counts. And that's where understanding music comes in. And it's like, well, there is no motion for, like, I don't know, we'll say like 6 counts. And then you're doing like these particular steps, these motions, these stunts, these like whatever we're doing. So that's why having a deep knowledge of music and understanding how to dance is incredibly important, because you're going to a rhythm, to a beat.
Yeah, definitely. I do want to circle back on something, because I scrolled further down in this article where I was saying that they changed the rules on being able to use music with lyrics. So this article actually says that the rules for ice dancing changed even earlier. That changed in 97, 98.
Wow.
So I guess it did not change for all of the different disciplines at the same time. It's been varied. But then it's interesting, because below that they say that the International Skating Union's regulations make no mention of whether explicit lyrics are allowed. So
people trying to sneak some real stuff in there. maybe
well,
not.
Apparently this must have been 2018. At the time, they're not skating together anymore, and that's a whole other conversation. But Megan Duhamel and Eric Radford were pairs team from Canada. They apparently used Adele's Hometown Glory, which has a swear in the chorus, and I don't know whether or not they censored that or if that was allowed to happen. They also say there's no mention of any restrictions on original music either. Apparently, Adam Rippon sang a cover of Rihanna's Diamonds, and he was planning on skating to a recorded version of his cover at the Olympics in 2018, but decided not to do that. So I guess he was thinking about doing it.
I would have loved to hear that. I also love that song.
Would have been interesting. I mean, again, Star Andrews recorded her own version of At Last and is skating to that. And I mean, if nothing else, it also gets your music out there a little bit for maybe perhaps
for your post-Olympics endeavor.
Yes. I also want to mention this because this was a bit mind-blowing to me when I found this out, but skaters who skate in Olympics and in the various different international competitions, that is considered amateur figure skating because they don't make money doing it. Now, if you are skaters who perform in things like Stars on Ice or there's different theater on ice events, that's considered professional skating. But if you are performing at a competitive level, it is considered amateur skating because they don't make money off it. And let there be no mistake, there is nothing amateur about anything anybody is doing. So I find that mind-boggling that seems like odd terminology to use to me. But anyway, I just wanted to mention that.
That is strange.
Yes.
That is very strange.
Apparently they have to pay royalties on the music that they use. So
this
article says The artists are afforded royalties that are funded by the standard licensing fees that broadcasters pay to use music. For a live event like the Olympics, additional permissions aren't needed to be able to use the song, as it is covered by a blanket performing rights that allow its use in a commercial public setting. Works a little bit differently than, say, when a Beyonce song is used in a TV show. So yeah, I guess they have to pay a licensing fee for that. Let's see. Oh, the figure skater's choice of music forms part of the program component score. So apparently the music choice is part of the score.
So I wonder, I mean, I guess scoring is we touched a little bit on it. It's very subjective, right? When it comes to like what if I'm not a fan of your particular music choice, but we know like another judge may be like, it's fine. I think it works.
So I think the way it works now is before they would have 9 judges, I believe.
Yes.
And so that 9th judge was kind of the tiebreaker. And if you watch that documentary, that meddling documentary, you'll see just how important the vote of the 9th judge was when it came to pair skating. Now I believe they have, don't quote me on this, and I haven't looked it up, but I think it's 13 judges. And the way the system works is the point scoring is totally different than it used to be. And they don't actually, I don't think, take the score from all 12 judges. It's a random computerized, like they grab like maybe 8 of those scores and total those. So you never know which judge is going to get picked. So ultimately, I think it, in a way, it makes it more fair because then there's less likelihood for judges to cheat or sway a vote to go a certain way because it's scored very differently. But yeah, so what they say here is that the scores for both the short program and the free skate are calculated by adding the technical element score, which is the difficulty and execution of, for instance, a skater's footwork and jumps, and the program component score, which is artistry and presentation of each routine together. So music plays a role, especially in the program component score, on the interpretation of the music physically, emotionally, and intellectually, as the skater delivers the intent of the music and composition. The composition element is about the choreography of the performance. The original arrangement of different movements to the music form part of the scoring process, as well as the idea, concept, vision, and mood as it relates to the music. An overall winner is determined by adding the scores of the short program and the free skate. So the total is what determines who ultimately wins a competition, but part of what goes into that artistic score is the choice of music and the artistry, the representation, the interpretation of the music throughout the program, which I think I feel like, like you said, that is a hard thing to score and that's the thing with the 6.0 judging system though, is that it was very much like the way they described it in that documentary is like trying to compare a Van Gogh to a Picasso.
Right.
Like Picasso might be one person's style, but maybe not another's. So that person's not going to maybe score as high on the artistry because that's not their style. So let's just say the judging system that's used now, I think, makes it a little bit more unbiased as far as how that all plays into the score. But certainly the music plays an important role in the program and the interpretation of the program. And I think there are some skaters that do a phenomenal job. Like, so again, I'm going to go back to the Canadians from 2018, the ice dancing pair. There's a documentary called, I think it's called Roxanne, but that kind of went through the process of how they came up with that program and how they came up with the music and how they prepared and they trained and initially they picked the music and then they knew they wanted to tell a certain story with it. And I think, tell? Oh yeah. Yeah. Sometimes I look at a program and I'm like, what like they talk about the story, but it's like, what exactly is the story here? Like, I don't really see a story in a lot of programs, but there are some that it's like this, I can definitely, like, that was a real good example of you can see what the story is that they're trying to tell here. Like, they were trying to take the movie and portray those characters on ice, and I think
but it was like
fantastic.
I still have a visceral reaction watching this routine, because I'm like, this is so much more than like conveying a story. Like, they've nailed, of course, they're highly skilled, talented athletes. They've managed to tell the story, but there's an emotional connection they have to that story that I think translated.
Yes.
Well past them to just like telling a story. I'm like, no, you have a connection to it, and that's what we experienced.
Right. And I think that's a big key, though, is that you have to have a connection to the music if you're choosing that. And it goes back to at the beginning, what I was initially talking about with needing to not only have a connection, but also know that you really love that music, because you're going to have to listen to it a lot.
This is like something that happened to you. Like, this was your song, something happened, this is what you were playing during a moment in your life, and that's why you're connected to it. And that's what we're seeing.
Right. Well, and even after, you're still going to probably have to hear it, because if you do what they did and like blow everybody away, you're going to hear about it for years, even afterwards. So, you know, it is very important. The music plays a very big role in the sport.
I love how after that routine, I remember this, because obviously watched it not too long ago, that they played I Want Candy after they were done, when they were like telling their score. And I thought, like, what do you play after something like that? Like,
well, yeah. I mean, there were people in the comments, if you go watch the YouTube video, that were like, that's what they chose to play. Like, why not just play nothing? Because that would have at least been more fitting than picking that song. Like, good grief.
Like, I felt for the person in that, like, whoever was DJing. It was like, what do I play?
Right, exactly.
Like, dang.
Yeah. It is kind of funny when you look back on it that's what they chose. Right. But
when you're doing like the highlight reel and you're listening to I Want Candy, it's like something about this is not doing this a good
doesn't
service.
compute. Does not compute. Oh my God. Yeah. No, it was such a good choice. And you know, like I said, I don't think anyone else picking that music can really compare. If I hear that song starting and I'm like, oh, really? You're doing this? This seems like a risky choice, but okay. And usually I'm not as impressed by the time it's done. But yeah, the music is a huge part of skating. And I don't think there are a lot of sports where that is the case. The only other one maybe would be gymnastics.
Yes. Yeah, I was going to say like floor routine for sure. Because it's constantly music playing during gymnastics. But for floor routines, theirs is a little different where it's starting to change a little bit, because how these mixes aren't necessarily to be, there's moments where they have like these choreographed breaks, but they're about attempting certain skills to acquire points, and they have to do ever so many of these within that time frame, and these music breaks are a way for them to transition into what they need to do. Whereas for skating, it's a part of what it's integrated into their routine. Right,
exactly. So yeah, I feel like we could still be here talking for a while, but I didn't pay attention to what time we started. I think we started pretty close to an hour ago. We haven't gotten to Song of the Week. I don't know if you had a Song of the Week in mind.
Oh, I do. I do. This time I am prepared.
Okay. All right. Do you want me to let you go first, or would you like me to do the usual announcements and then do mine and give you a little bit of...
Yeah, sure. Yeah, let's have our tradition.
All right. So if you're new to the show, or if you needed a reminder, we have a Spotify Song of the Week playlist. We put our picks in their entirety into that playlist every week, and then we put the link in the description of every show. If you're watching the video version of the show, we also put a Spotify scan code on the screen, and all you have to do is open up Spotify on your phone or mobile device, tap the camera in the search bar, and hold your device to the screen. It'll take you to our playlist, where I would recommend that you hit the like button so that you can find the playlist again in the future. We have a lot of songs in there, very eclectic list. that's not about to change anytime soon. So
Nope.
It's about to get more eclectic, I think, here with today's picks. So this one was a toss-up for me, and I had one, and then I was going through the list of music here, and I was like, yeah, well, I'm gonna maybe pick two because I got like, I can't decide.
Okay.
So what I initially had, and I can't remember who skated to it because again, it's not on the list here, and I would have taken better notes if I didn't realize I wouldn't be able to easily find this information based on looking up the songs and say figure skating. But anyway, Anton Dubeke and the Overtones cover of Moondance off of 2017's From the Top. I love the original version of this song. This version has a full jazz band with a brass section in the whole 9 yards, which I just love. It takes it to a whole nother level. Interestingly enough, I don't know really anything about Anton Dubeke, but apparently he was 51 when he released this album, and it was his first album ever because he largely spent his career in dancing, as well as hosting some different TV shows. So very interesting. I did not know that, but I loved this cover of Moondance, so I would check that out. But then the other song that I saw on the list, I'm like, oh, but this is good too, is Keegan Messing, who's one of the men's skaters from Canada, is doing Never Tear Us Apart by INXS off of 1987's Kick. And this is a really good song too. And I haven't heard this song in a long time, but it's another one of those where you hear it start in a performance and it's like, oh, well, this is an intriguing choice of music here because you don't hear a lot of people using a song like, I don't think any INXS song to any figure skating performance, but I also just really like Keegan Messing as a skater. He seems like a cool dude to hang out with. Every time he's waiting for his scores, the last few performances, he's got a son that's like, I don't know, 8 months old now. So every time he pulls out his phone and holds it up to the camera and he's got a picture of his son. But just another really, really good song. So I had already gotten my notes together and chosen Moondance, and then I saw that and I'm like, and I was listening to it and I'm like, but Moondance is so good too, and like, when would I have a reason to pick that? So I think I'm going to go with two. I think I'm going to pick Moondance by Anton Dubeke and the Overtones, or the cover by the original by Van Morrison, of course, and Never Tear Us Apart by INXS. Those are going to be my two picks for this week. So
that's awesome.
I hope I didn't take either of your picks. There's a long list there. So
No. I don't think anybody would have chosen this. I don't think anybody has chosen this, but it caught my attention because it did happen. I did remember this happening at the U.S. Nationals in 2018. Because I was like, oh, I have to remember. I remember what the commentators were like trying to decipher like what song it was. And it was such a comical moment because they're like, what is he performing to? And it was Lil Jon's Turned Down for What? And I was like, this kid is a G. First of all, like that's how you're gonna live your best life. Like what I appreciate is what we've talked about is that there's clearly a love and a joy for the music. You know what I mean? Like these figure skaters are athletes, but of course they're listening to music just like the rest of us, and they're gonna have things that they love listening to. And the cojones of this kid to be like, you know what? This is what I'm gonna perform to. Turned Down for What? And he looked like he was having a good time. Yeah. And I think that's what I appreciate the most, because that's what that song's about. Like, turned down for what? Like, why we gotta stop today? But to hear the commentators like not able to fathom what the song was and who performs it, I thought was the best comedic bit in ice skating.
That's funny.
So that was definitely a memorable moment for me, and that would be my pick. Lil Jon Turned Down for What? I could have done another route because, like I said, after seeing this list, I was like, oh, there's this. Of course, I talked about the Greatest Showman, and there's so many songs that I appreciated from that soundtrack. I'm going to hold on to those for another day. And I can't wait to see, like, I'm going to feel something as these performances like manifest. We may have to do, like, we may need to touch base after some of these. Like, Kayla, listen. about last night.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't looked yet to see when the figure skating events are happening during the Olympics. I know they start on February 3rd, and this show will drop on the 5th, which will be a couple of days after they start. So I doubt they'll be completed in a 2-day time span, so this should hopefully still be relevant. But yeah, I'm very much looking forward to seeing the performances at the Olympics, especially after having watched so many different championship competitions over the last few months now. And the Olympics is always a whole different level of performance. So it should be interesting. But yeah, I'd be happy to do a recap of sorts at some point afterwards, because we also got the Super Bowl coming up as well.
I know. You've been seeing the promos. They're out there.
Yeah. So we aren't doing an episode on the Super Bowl because we did an episode a while back on halftime shows. And then a couple of weeks ago, Quicia and Ted and I spent a good portion of one of the episodes talking about the halftime performance for this year's Super Bowl. So I guess if something very racy and controversial happens during halftime, it may maybe something we discuss after, but we aren't doing a show specifically for the Super Bowl at this point. So if you want to get in the spirit of the Super Bowl and hear a bit of music discussion in regards to halftime shows, definitely go back and look for the episode where we discussed Super Bowl halftime shows, but there won't be one specifically for this Super Bowl. Like I said, this is kind of our Olympic special since that's going on now, and that only happens every 4 years for Winter Olympics. So, what
a special year it's going to be with everything going on. You know what I mean, like COVID stuff. So I'm sure a lot of athletes are like incredibly excited, but there's like a lot of expectations. I don't know. I'm really excited this year for so many reasons. Like not just figure skating. Plan on watching like bobsled. Yeah. Obviously snowboarding.
That's always fun.
Shaun White's last appearance this year. Like there's so many magical things happening that I'm getting snacks. I'm going to be hunkered down. I'm working out of my living room. Like there's going to be so much going on. So I'm tuned in. Right.
Yeah, I don't really understand curling, but curling is an event that I enjoyed watching last Olympics, so I'll maybe try to watch a little bit of that at some point. But yeah, I always love watching the bobsleighing. Speed skating is another thing that's a lot of fun to watch. And actually, I was talking to a former coworker of mine recently, and he does roller derby, and he officiates roller derby, and one of the skaters that he has worked with in roller derby is on the Olympic speed skating team. So that should be very exciting, especially for him, I'm sure, to be able to watch that. So yeah, I honestly, not gonna lie, my favorite is the Winter Olympics. There are things I enjoy watching in the Summer Olympics, but if given the choice to only be able to watch one or the other, I would pick the Winter Olympics personally for probably obvious reasons at this point, given the last hour or so of discussion. So, but yeah, so very much looking forward to it. And maybe we'll revisit this with some conversation about what transpires at the Olympics and the musical choices. And I'm sure maybe we'll see some skaters that we perhaps have not seen during the other competitions leading up to it. But on that note,
I hope that there's a performance that causes us to get Matt and Ted involved. I hope that there's a performance that's like, you gotta have to watch this clip because someone just like goes like all out into like
I hope so.
some heavy metal performance. And I would love to just like watch this.
Yeah, it may not happen in the actual events, but I think they usually do a gala at the Olympics as well. I don't know if they'll show that on TV, or if you've got Peacock, maybe that's something they'll show on Peacock because they tend to put more up there. But yes, that would be interesting if we can get them to join us for an episode on this. So on that note, I have no idea what time we started the show, so I don't know where we're at in this, but I feel like it's well over an hour. As a reminder, yes, I had a feeling this one was going to be tough to keep into one episode. In fact, I think the last time we talked in preparation for this, I mentioned that there was a good possibility that this could be a 2-part or that we'd have to do a second part. So perhaps we can do that at another time. But yes, if you have a recommendation for any topics for a future episode, or if you'd like to be on a show, or if you just want to share your thoughts on any of the episodes that we've done so far, reach out and let us know. There are a lot of different ways you can do that. I used to just list off all the different places, but what I'm going to say is go to our Linktree link, which is linktr.ee/distorted opinions, and that will give you links to everything, to our Anchor page, to our YouTube channel, to our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Our email is also on there, so you can email us at distortedopinionshow@gmail.com. All the different ways to get a hold of us or find us are in our Linktree, linktr.ee/distorted opinions. So go check that out and leave us a voicemail over on Anchor, send us an email, leave a comment on social media. Even if you're listening to the show only and you're not watching, be sure to head over to our YouTube channel and subscribe, hit the subscribe button, because we're still trying to get to 100 subscribers so we can change to a custom URL, and also to get Matt to go play the Home Depot theme at a Home Depot with one of his mini amps. We got to get to 100 subscribers for that to happen, though. So be sure to head over there. You can either go to our Linktree, or you can just search for Distorted Opinions over on YouTube, and you'll find our channel there. And on that note, thank you for joining us this week. Hopefully you maybe learned a thing or two about figure skating, and if it's not something you've watched before, hopefully we've maybe piqued your interest to give it a shot and watch it. If for no other reason, then there's a lot of really great music that you can listen to, and a lot of different interesting musical choices. So hopefully you will watch at least the Olympics,
Yes.
some event in the Olympics, and
Yes.
and we're very excited about it. So with that, Quicia, thank you again for joining me
For
this topic, and we will see you next week with a new episode. We'll see you then.